All right, so hi, it's me, Scott. Behind the Bits is back. We are live on all the platforms. I'm not just doing Twitch tonight. I'm doing the Facebook, the Twitter, the other thing, the Twitch. Yeah, I'm on all the stuff. So if you're watching, thanks for watching. I know I've been gone for a while. I am here now in this new sterile environment with nothing behind me except for bare walls because we moved into an apartment because houses are hard to come by. And by the way, I wear glasses now because the plant life in Alabama is attacking my eyes. So I had to go to Zenni Optical and save my eyes. So I look a lot different, older. I look like Gene Hackman. Like, what was that movie he was in with Will Smith? What was it called? I don't know, 99. I remember the year, one of Gene Hackman's last movies. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. The podcast is my passion, and I'm glad to be able to do it again. So without further ado, let's do the podcast. I've got a comedian from the Indianapolis area that is a regular on the Bob and Tom Show and works for the Bob and Tom Show. And you've seen him all over the country and all over the Midwest. Wiley's, he does Wiley's Comedy Club. He does clubs there in Indy and stuff like that. I think he's hilarious, and I was reminded of how hilarious he is by the Failed to Mention News segment that he's doing on Bob and Tom now. And let's just bring him out. It's Jeff Oskay. Hey, Jeff.
Hello. I'm texting my girlfriend to kill the air conditioner. I'm out in the garage, and it kicked on right as you were introducing me. So I'm sorry. It'll be off soon.
Yeah, and that's cool. Sound quality I really don't care about because I can hear my voice bouncing just all over this room right now. So whatever.
Okay.
Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about this.
I told you before that I've in my hiatus I listened back to some of my episodes, and aside from hating my voice, I noticed that I was a little bit too stiff. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit more funky. I'm gonna try to be like I am on my talk show and just be funky and fresh and
good,
fun. And so I'm going to try that a little bit, and I probably won't succeed, but I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. So you've been doing comedy for a long time. You start. I did the whole internet stalking of you. Did you start when you were 30?
Yeah. So I'll be 48 next month, so I've been doing it for like 18 years.
Yeah, and congrats on the beard, by the way.
Thank you.
I know what type of effort it takes to do that. And,
it takes zero, which is why I have it. That's why
well, you have to deal with it in its awkward stages.
Yeah, I've always had, the opinion that the less of my face you can see, the better off I am. So I've always had a beard. Or I think there's probably something back in the 90s of me and a goatee. And,
yeah.
I don't know why I said it like that, but and a goatee.
Hey, Jeff Dwoskin, thanks for being my #1 fan. Thanks for popping in. Hey,
what a great name.
Yeah, he's a Michigan comic, and he has a great podcast called Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show. So there you go, free plug, Jeff. And I'll leave it on the audio. I won't even cut it. So I looked at the stages of your beard while stalking you, and but the first clip I found of you was posted 13 years ago, and it's called Jeff Oskay versus Hecklers. And
which is funny because that was like at an open mic, and it was from like 2 years prior to that, and it was put up. I didn't even put it up. The guy who I worked with, his girlfriend at a bar, he put it up. And Like, I don't think it's that good. So
Well,
but
yeah.
I can't
The
get
funny
taken
thing
down.
is, yeah, the funny thing is there was the impetus of the joke that you put on your album, though. Dream Killer, the dog biscuit store, the three
Oh, the
dog,
dog
yeah,
bakery?
yeah, the dog baker, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I listened to your album too, and
Oh,
the
thanks.
that joke you started. It must have had its beginnings there during those open mic sessions. So it's always neat to see the stuff that you do early that lives on with you and comes back many years later and is still good and strong.
And that was one of those jokes where I couldn't get it to work,
Mhm.
and at the time, and then, one night, like 4 or 5 years later, I was going through, like, old, books. Like, if I couldn't think of something to write back when I used to write way more, back when I was single, um, back then, I, would try to write every night, and I wasn't writing for Bob and Tom then, so I was
Uh-huh.
just writing for my act. And if I couldn't think of anything to write about, I would go through my old notebooks and see if I could find an old one I couldn't make work and rewrite it and see if I could get it to work.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so that came back. I ended up being able to make it work later on when I
Yeah,
was
it
writing
really
comedy.
hit. It hit on the album. I felt like it hit on the open mic too, even though you were being totally taken out of your game by people just chatting. And
Yeah, that was one of those that, like, I was probably back then. I used to go to they would let me up at every Tuesday at the open mic. So I went
mhm.
every Tuesday, and then I usually was like towards the end.
Yeah.
And like, I think there was one person left after me, and we were like 14 or 15 comics in. And these
Mhm.
people had been talking, like, their person went first, and
Mhm.
then they talked through like 12 comics. So by the
Yeah.
time I got up there, I already hated those people.
Yeah.
And it had pissed me off because they screwed up a bunch of people's routines because it threw them off. And um why the club management didn't do shit about it, I don't
Yeah.
know, but it was I found it very frustrating, which is why I kind of went off after, as soon as they said, like, they probably didn't. Had you heard the hour and a half before, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, those bitches deserved it." If you just heard that part, you're like, "Wow, that seems really extreme for the first time they said something." And it's like,
Oh yeah, but I enjoyed the clip. I'm glad it's out there. So starting when you're 30, what was it that drew you to comedy? 30 is considered later in life for comedians because most of them start when they're 12. So what was it that drew you to comedy when you were a little bit older?
well, so I was like at like a super low point around that time, and I had gotten a job working at a bar, and I made sandwiches in the back. And
Mhm.
the guy who owned the bar happened to had owned all the comedy clubs in town back in the boom of comedy.
Mhm.
And he would wash dishes. This like 60-some-year-old man would come and wash dishes on lunch, and I would work the sandwich station next to him, and he would tell me all these great stories about, Tim Allen and Brad Garrett and um oh, who else? There were uh just all of them. I mean, Dennis Wolfberg,
Uh-huh.
Louis Anderson, Drew Carey used to drive over to his club for like $15 an MC spot. And,
Uh-huh.
he would tell all these great stories. And I had always loved stand up like my entire life, but I was insecure. I was like, "Nah, I can't can't go and be a stand-up like that's stupid. Like people don't go and do that. And he would just tell these stories, and they were great. And finally one day I was just like, I went down into the basement, and he liked me and I liked him, and I would always make him laugh, I thought. And so one day he was down doing his paperwork, and I went down. His name's Chick Perrin, by the way. I don't know why I didn't say his name, but he used to own all the comedy clubs in Indianapolis back in the day. And all the famous people slept on his couches, and he has great stories about just stuff that like probably comics wouldn't want out, like kind of thing. And he always joked about, back in the day, it was like, do you want to be paid in white or green, like or half and half kind of thing? And back in those days, comedy days. And so I went down, I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna try stand-up comedy. And he's like, well, you have all the fucking hang-ups of a comic. Like, you have to like write jokes, right? And I was like, yeah. And I left an important part out. Earlier on, I was like, I always wanted to be a comedy, write jokes for people. Like, how do I do that? And he goes, well, nobody's gonna buy any fucking jokes from you until you're a stand-up comedian, because you're nobody. So why would they just buy jokes from a nobody? Like, they have to watch your act and think that you're funny, and then they will let you write for them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'll do stand-up so I can become a comedy writer. And I was horrible.
What they all do.
I'm still not good, but I was way horrible for like the first. I'm just not comfortable on stage. I'm not likable. I feel like I'm a good writer, but I don't. Like, I'm not memorable. I'm just another.
Really?
Afterwards, they're like, "Hey, you were funny." And it's like, "What's my name?" And they're like, "I have no fucking clue." Like,
yeah. That's funny, because I see you as more memorable than some others. And I don't know do you ever get called a comedian's comedian?
Not to my face.
Okay, because you know how comedians are with other comedians. That if they think you're funny, they might raise an eyebrow because they've heard everything before. Whereas with you, I LOL, and and it's kind of hard to make me LOL. So
nice.
I thought it was, they call it playing to the back of the room or whatever. But I felt like that you kind of were in tune with what other comics think and like. So that's what I saw, and that's what I heard in your album too. Because I do sense that uncomfortable persona on stage. I can sense you being uncomfortable, but I think that's actually good. And that's part of your, I'm going to use all the cliches. That's part of your comedy voice. And so I think I really, really enjoy it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And I like your style because you're just never in a hurry. You say it. You enunciate. We both talked about being deaf before we got on, and if a comedian doesn't enunciate, even if I'm in the front row, I don't know what the hell they're saying. If I got my hearing aids turned completely up, I don't know what they're saying, and I miss a lot of stuff. But with you, I got all of it, and I didn't have to turn my car stereo all the way up. So,
speaking of that, I'm sure Brent Terhune, correct?
Yeah, he did the show. Yeah.
Well, me and Brent, we had a charity benefit we did 2 weeks ago at a movie theater, and they're like, "Do you guys need a sound check?" I'm like, "Why would I need a sound check? Like, it's a 2 p.m. on a Sunday comedy show at I need a microphone that has sound that you can hear. It's a movie theater. You guys have the best speakers ever.
Yeah,
we'll be fine." And then we got there, and they ran us through the PA speakers.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you for tonight. It was a great time.
It was the worst. No one could understand a word I was saying.
Uh-huh.
I tried just putting down the microphone and
Yeah.
talking really loud, and that went horrible. And just it was yeah, no one knew.
So they use.
I wasn't enunciating too well that day. Let's put
Yeah,
it
no doubt. They were using the speakers that they use when there's like a tornado or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That never get turned on and they're
Yeah,
never
they weren't
used.
using the IMAX speakers. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way. Like they were saving those for the movies.
Oh man. Well, every comedian has to go through shitty sound, so I can definitely relate to that.
It's
So-
so funny though, because after a while you're like, oh, I've been in the game for a while. Like after a while you aren't doing that many shit gigs. Like you're
Yeah.
doing just like the gigs you want and pretty nice, decent gigs, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'll go and help raise money for the Humane Society. And it's like, I think I ruined comedy for everyone that day. Like, I think no one, they're never going to raise money with a comedy show ever again at the Humane Society in that town. Like, they better have a band next time because no one's coming.
Oh man. Oh yeah. I did a gig for the Humane Society in South Bend.
No, nice.
Yeah. It was a combination of music and comedy. Yeah, that's been a few years ago, but yeah, I did one of those too, and it was a decent mic too. So
Nice. Yeah,
sorry,
I mean, it was no fault of the Humane Society or the people that put it on. It was just one of those situations that it is what it is, and the people paid. I mean, they got their money.
Yeah.
Didn't get a good show.
Yeah.
For their money.
So how did those first few open mics go for you?
Oh, horrible. Like I was very like hold a paper up and read it word for word and shaking. And I think up until, it probably took me 4 or 5 years before I even got to MC at like my home club. Like I wasn't good. Like I threw up a lot before shows. And I also used to think, like when I first started, I'd try to be way more edgy. Like, way, I don't know. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say I went as far as like a Doug Stanhope, but I was trying to be clever and trying to be edgy and like not clean. And like finally I was like, I want to MC, and they're like, yeah, you can't MC with fucking pit bulls chewing on babies.
Yeah.
Like, you have to. So then I was like, okay, so I'm gonna write 15 clean minutes that are fairly like funny enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing you don't realize when you start MCing is, or not MCing, but open micing, is the stuff that makes an open mic crowd laugh doesn't necessarily make a paying crowd laugh.
Yeah.
Like at a normal show.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, I'm really edgy. And then you do it in front of like, a Saturday early show. And they're like, that's inappropriate. I just got done having dinner. I don't want to hear. And then you're like, oh, that kills at the open mic. And it almost got to be like, if it went well at the open mic, it was like, well, I'm not going to do that at a paid show.
Yeah.
Like
that's one of the pitfalls of doing a lot of open mics, is that you do start playing to the other comedians that are at the open mic, and they love the edgy stuff, and because that's the way they think. And yeah, I had to, because I'm squeaky clean, and I had to, I tried to get edgy, and I don't have the looks for it, and and I'm too old. And even though I've got edgy, you talked about Stanhope, I've got those Stanhope thoughts in my brain and stuff like that, but I can't pull it off. I tried, and it was just like, no, it doesn't work.
It definitely, people can see through, like they know, you know what I mean? Like people know if you're being true to yourself up there, unless you're like an amazing actor or something. But I mean, if you're just your every, day comic, like they can tell if there's nothing I hate more than when and it's changed a lot since they've legalized it, but I hated when obvious non-drug users would do drug jokes or like
right.
pot jokes about, and it's like, well, you don't even smoke pot. Like, leave those to people, leave those to the pothead. Like, it was like they were trying to make themselves look cool, or when they weren't cool, or the guy who's up there talking about banging chicks. It's like, dude, you haven't banged anyone. What are you talking about? Like, you aren't being honest right now. But when people are like, hey, I suck and I live in my parents' attic and I drive a beat up fucking car, and they're like, I believe that.
Yeah.
Like, looking at you, like I believe you to be a true person now, and now all your jokes about that I'm going to go along with. Whereas you get these guys up there and they're like, hey, I'm a ladies' man. And you're like, no, you aren't. And now everything you're going to try to sell, I'm not buying.
Yeah. So when did it start clicking for you? Obviously, sucking is part of it. You have to suck for a while, or you start off being okay and then you go into a complete suck and then you have to come out of it. When did it start clicking for you?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I would say once I started getting to MC, then like I was friends with the guy who booked the MC. I became friends with the guy who booked the MCs. And Crackers, where I started, had 2 clubs. So he would book me like twice a month to MC, like at the downtown club once and then the Broad Ripple club once. Plus I was open micing. So I was getting, and back then it was like Wednesday through Sunday. So I was getting like 7 shows a week, twice a month. Like I'm just getting up 14 times at 15 minutes a time.
Yeah.
And
that's nice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just grow so much quicker because it's all about stage time. And now, not only that, you aren't in front of an open mic crowd, you're in front of like a real comedy crowd that isn't necessarily like want the MC to be edgy or make them think about life or, all that shit. So it was really weird. Like I MC'd and I did good for like the first week. And then the next week I MC'd, I like ate a dick the whole week. It was like, what is happening? But it was like, I think I just had natural energy the first week because I was so excited about it. And then the second week, I just didn't, I don't know. I realized like some of those jokes weren't going to work for an opening spot. And then once I got to do that, like once I started MCing, which took me like 5 years, and like all these people would start after me, and like I'd be like, they're getting a fucking MC. Like I've been doing this. I've been at this club every Tuesday for, 3 years.
Yeah.
Give or take. And like back then I didn't have a car. Like I'd ride my bike up there. Like I'd get there early to sign up like 2 hours early for the alternate list. And then they'd be like, oh, we aren't taking any alternates tonight. It's like, fuck you. I drove, So like I had put my time in. And then once I started MCing, I think like less than a year later, I got a call to open next door to the club at like a rock venue for Jamie Kennedy. From the owner, from the lady who owns Crackers, Ruth Ann. She called me and she was like, hey, there's an opportunity to open for Jamie Kennedy. You got to do 20 minutes. It's 2 shows. It pays like $150. I was like, cool. So I go and I do the opening show that night, and there's hardly anyone there. Like I did okay. It went fine, but it's like a rock club, with like a balcony. Well, then like the 10 o'clock show was like sold out and he had like a bunch of strippers and people back in the green room just doing whippets and partying. And he goes, "Hey man, go out there and do like 45 minutes."
Oh shit.
And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, I want to party for a little while. I'm not ready to go out there yet." So like, and I go, "Dude, I don't have 45 minutes." He goes, "Go out there and do every joke you fucking have before you bring me out." And I go, "Okay, cool." So I went out and I think I did like 35 minutes. And then I brought him out and I did great. I did great because it was a sold out show and these people were there to party. And
Right.
it was like, it was like a T-ball. You know what I mean? Like it was just served up to me on like a golden platter.
Yeah.
Like, there was no losing that night. Those people had paid a lot of money. They were there to have fun. They thought I was someone because I was opening for Jamie Kennedy. Like they didn't realize I was just some like local douchebag who just happened to be, friends with the next door comedy club's owner who gave me. So I come off stage and the owner like comes up to me and she goes, like, "You did 38 minutes." And I go, "No, he told me to." Like I thought I was in trouble. Like, no, he told me to. He didn't want to come out yet. He told me to go over my time. And she goes, "I didn't know you had that much time." Like they loved you. And it was like I was still new enough. I didn't I was like, "Yeah, I did great." And now I know that like no, like anyone was gonna do great in that spot.
Yeah.
Like I just happened to be lucky enough to have that spot.
Yeah.
And then she's like, how would you like to feature next week for Jamie Foxx? And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that'd be fucking awesome." So I got my first feature week and I was like, feeling really good about myself and like feeling like I finally got it down. And not till like a year and a half later did I realize like, oh no, they put the shittiest comic with the best headliner because they don't need a good member.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if the MC bombs for 15 minutes and then the feature bombs for a half an hour because everyone's there to see Jamie fucking or not Jamie Foxx. Did I say Jamie Foxx? It wasn't Jamie Foxx. It was fucking Aries Spears.
Oh, well, that's very close.
He does Jamie Foxx. I'm sorry. I was picturing Aries Spears doing Jamie Foxx. It wasn't fucking Jamie Foxx. That would have been fucking awesome. It was Aries Spears. And he was Aries Spears. You know how Aries Spears is. And
I've heard some stories.
He was fine. He never said a word to me the whole week.
Yeah.
Like he never even was like, "What's up?" Like he just never talked to me ever. But it was fine. I had fun. I did good. I did well. I guess that's the right term. So, and that's when I started getting like once I started getting a feature and I was getting to still MC while I was featuring, and then other comics would see me and I got really lucky to have like Jimmy Pardo take me to open for a few shows for him. And I got to just open for some really cool, like locally, this guy named Dave Dugan started to have me opening for him a lot. Scott Long had me start going on the road with him. And I just started having a lot of comics take me on the road or call me if they were working in the Midwest to open for them. Like not necessarily take me on the road, but like, "Hey, I'm going to be an hour and a half away. Do you want to drive over there and open for me?" kind of thing. And so then once that started happening, I started feeling better and getting, the more stage time you have, it's all about stage time.
Yeah.
The more you get, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, no doubt. Was the goal still to write for others? Did you feel like you were putting in your time so you could write for other people?
Yeah, I started, I would say probably I sold like my first hour of jokes to just local guys who wanted to like go up quicker. And they'd be, anytime somebody was like, "Hey, I like that joke," I'd be like, I'll sell it to you. And I've had jokes on Last Comic Standing. I've had jokes on Live at Gotham. I've had jokes on all the late night talk shows. Pretty much, I think all of them, except for nothing lately. I haven't sold a lot lately, but back when I was younger and opening for a lot of people working at the club, I sold a lot of jokes to people. Anytime a headliner goes, I like that joke, I'd be like, I'll sell it to you.
Yeah. That's great. So
no, it's not great. I wish I had all of those jokes back. I never should have sold any of them.
Yeah.
It's stupid. But I need to keep my lights on. Like there were times when, you know, some people locally got mad at me because I sold jokes to people they considered were shitty, undeserving comics. But it was like, hey man, I needed a light bill paid and they had $350 they were going to give me for 30 words I wrote down.
Yeah.
I got a kid right now. He doesn't give a shit about, principle or any of that stuff when it comes to me selling a joke to somebody who's not what they considered not deserving of those things.
He just wants some Legos and
he just wants our power to not get turned. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, there were times, like a week gets canceled on you, and it's like, oh, well, that's how I was going to pay for Christmas. And then you're like, some sleazebag comics like, I'll give you a couple $100 for that joke, and you're like, okay, cool. I need to give my kid a Christmas this winter, in 2 weeks, and and I'm not making any money in between now and then. So here's the joke, and I'll take that in cash.
Yeah. Could you do jokes that other people wrote?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would if somebody gave me like on my Bob and Tom bit. Where I do failed to mention, people write jokes for me on that.
Okay.
They'll give me jokes, and I usually I don't know, reword them to my own voice a little bit, but sometimes I just read them word for word. Like I'll just and the worst part is when people are like, "Oh my god, that was the best! I love that joke," and you're like, "Yeah, I didn't write that one. That was Josh Arnold." And they're like, oh, well, okay, cool. But I also write for different characters on the show. And so, like, there's times when people are like, oh, did you write that? And it's like, yeah. And they're like, that was great. But most of the time they're like, oh, like once a year, one person will give me a compliment and he'll be like, oh, I loved how this came out. And I was like, yeah, that's the one I didn't write. And they're like, oh. And then they don't compliment me again for a year, and then it's on something I didn't write again. So it's always, apparently my taste is not their taste.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bob and Tom, because my history with them is I lived in Indy in the early mid 80s, and that's before they were syndicated. And they used to have Gunner on sometimes.
Oh, and I used to love Gunner.
Yeah,
I actually get to talk to Gunner like once or twice a week.
Do you?
It's like it's like a childhood highlight. You know what I mean? Kind of like doing Bob and Tom. I mean, how old are you?
57.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, my dad, we used to listen to Bob and Tom when he would drive us to school every morning. And I always, they were the biggest thing in Indianapolis ever for the longest time.
Yeah.
Especially during the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
They were huge in Indianapolis. It was like, ooh, if one day I could ever even get to meet them or whatever, they were like celebrities for being DJs.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I managed I lived on the east side, and the Washington Square Mall, there was a Farrell's restaurant in there, and I managed that because I had managed one at South Bend and they closed it. So I moved down to Indy to manage that one. And there was a bank right beside me. I don't remember what it was called, but they opened at 8 or 9. And we didn't open until 10:30, but I'd be in there and I'd be playing Bob and Tom on the PA system, and really loud. and I'd always get complaints from them because I was listening to Bob and Tom. But that's when they were doing like the Dick Nixon and Haji.
Oh yeah, Jay
and
Baker and Mark
Yeah.
Munch and
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and then I totally fell out of touch with them. And my wife would always, because they were syndicated in South Bend where we lived, and she would always listen to them. But I never turned my radio on because I was always listening to podcasts and comedy albums and stuff like that. Anyway, so I totally lost touch with them, and then I found you. Somehow we became friends on Facebook, and you posted one of the failed to mention news things, and I just fell in love. And it's become, every time I see one now, it's what I show my wife before we go to bed. It's like meditation for us, so that we feel better about going to bed. And
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and what I have to say about it is it's okay to listen to it, but you really, really need to watch it, because you have this expression on your face that I tried to narrow it down. It's like somebody who is showing up for a job interview for a job that they don't want, and a little bit scared, and just a little bit like, I don't want to be here, but I kind of do want to be here. It's really...
Yeah. That's a good. That's how I actually feel.
Yeah, and I just absolutely love it. And the neat thing is, I mean, when you bomb, when Christy doesn't laugh, or Tom just looks down at his paper or whatever.
Oh yeah.
You always just hit the button, failed to mention news.
Yeah, there's so many outs. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that I can just, hit a button, or just start talking again, or just get up and walk out. Like, it's, but I definitely, when I first started doing it, I just wanted it to be, I don't know, I grew up loving like Norm and Letterman and Dennis Miller and all the news desk guy. Like, I even like Seth Meyers news. Like, there's a lot of different news type, I don't know, people. I liked the more I don't know, just unique kind of people. Even, just, hey, this is a joke. I don't care if you like it or not. Like,
it's
I'm
dry.
giving you.
Yeah, it's a little more dry. You don't have to emote. You don't have to do a whole lot. You just read the joke, and I like what you do with it, because you don't have to emote, but you do, and it's very subtle. At the end of the joke, you're like, was that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, it wasn't even my idea, like the whole concept of doing it. Like, I started working there. I've written for the show for like 10 years, but I started working in the studio doing their video, like running their switchers and making the videos and putting together the TV show, like around 3 years ago. And when I started, Tom, I write a lot for Tom, and Tom was always like, I'd love to get you a segment like, Kostaki, or like Reno or Allie, and I was, I would pitch an idea to him and he wouldn't like it, and he would pitch an idea to me and I'm like, no, I don't like that. And for like 3 years this has gone on. And it would be, it would get dropped for 6 months, and then I'd see him in the hallways like, what do you have for, like, we gotta get you on, what do you have? And I'm like, I got nothing, I don't know what to do. And then Josh Arnold came up to me one day and was like, hey, what if you did a segment like called like Failed to Mention News, and you And he explained it to me, and I go, I get it, but I don't. Like, and he goes, well, here, I'll write some and I'll send them to you. So he wrote them, and I was like, oh, I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. And so, which immediately when I read the 3 he sent me, like I wrote like 5 more immediately. Like it was one of those like super inspirational things. And then I was supposed to do it as a call-in, but I run the video department there, and I'm like, well, I do the, and I was really afraid, like if you screw up, like Tom will ridicule you.
Yeah.
And I was really afraid of screwing up. So I ordered this gigantic map off of Amazon. And I decided what I was going to do, because we have a gigantic TV in the studio. I was going to record it in my house, then play it for them during the show.
Yeah.
So I tried that, and I made the recordings, and it looked stupid as shit. And I knew they were going to ridicule me even more. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring it into this empty office, and luckily Eddie, this engineer, he got it all set up, all the cameras set up, and the soundboard, and put all the sound. What do you want on the soundboard, and got it all. And so we were supposed to do it one Monday, and they're like, all right, we're gonna do it at 9:20, and I was like, I'm not ready. And then like that Tuesday, Josh came in and he goes, are you going to do it today? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it today. And then like some stuff came up. They're like, hey, we're going to have to bump you till tomorrow. I was like, awesome. And because I was just super, super worried, like introducing a whole new segment and the way I was going to introduce it, and the character I was going to be, which is me, but just exaggerated kind of thing. And I didn't know how it was going to go. So like Thursday, I had put it off for like 4 days, and Josh came in and goes, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to take it back, and I'm just going to do it myself. And I was like, okay, I'll do it today. And I did it that day, and it worked like they were all so nice to me. Like it was horrible, but they gave me, they're trying to help me out. They gave me some undeserved laughs. And Tom got really upset because he thought like afterwards he came up, he goes, hey, you need to have them move that sound bar closer to you. And I'm like, okay. And whatever, because there was a delay, because I would go like this, and that was bothering him. But like, so then like 2 weeks goes by, and he goes, man, you can't figure out that soundboard, can you? Like you're always talking over it, and it's like you can't get it timed right. And then maybe a month later, he called me and he goes, hey, you're doing that on purpose, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing that on purpose. I like, even when I'm not doing it on purpose, I'm doing it on, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I just slip up and it still works because it's, yes, I'm doing that on purpose. But and he just cackled. He's like, oh, I totally thought you just didn't know what you were doing in there, because I'm in a separate room in a separate part of the building.
Yeah,
like they can't see me. They can only see me on the TV. And he's like, yeah, I thought you totally just didn't know what you were doing. And I was like, no, I don't know what I'm doing, but I knew what I was doing there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he kept on. He goes, I'll talk to Eddie and see if he can move that thing closer to you. And I'm like, no, it's where it's supposed to be.
I mean, seeing you reach over for the button is part of the charm.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
Some people just think I'm really bad at my job.
Yeah.
So that's even funnier to me.
Yeah. I guess I get it. So you at least got one fan that gets it. So there you go. So backing up, how did the whole Bob and Tom gig start for you? Because you're actually helping me complete my set of Bob and Tom writers, because I had Terhune, I had Dwight Simmons, I had somebody else that writes for Bob and Tom. I don't remember, but yeah, you're helping. I'm just building a set of Bob and Tom writers.
Nice.
So how did that happen for you?
For me, it happened. The guy Chick Perrin, the guy who owned the comedy clubs, he called me one night, and I had been doing it for quite a few years, and he was like, "Hey, you should write for Bob and Tom," and I go, "Okay, that'd be awesome." And yeah, I know, yeah, it'd be like call it, your mom. You should write for the Tonight Show. It's like, yeah, I would love to. Like, that's just not that easy. And I go, yeah, I don't know how to make that happen. And he goes, I'll make it happen. Like I'm who, he basically was the guy who started bringing all the comics to Bob and Tom back in the 80s and kind of helped them build their name brand. He's like, Tom owes me. So he calls me back and he goes, here's Tom's number. He said to call him and he'll talk to you.
Wow.
And so I called him like right away and he goes, hey, I'm in the middle of doing an album. Call me back in like 3 months. And so I like called him back in 3 months and he's like, I'm in the middle of having a baby. Call me back. Call me back in like 6 months. And so I called him back in 6 months. And he goes, yeah, call me back in like 4 months. And and every time I would like mark it on my calendar, like call back And so one day I'm sitting there with my baby and it was like 3 weeks old and I get a call from an unknown number and it was him and he goes, hey, I had a dinner meeting fall out. Can you meet me in 45 minutes? And I'm like,
wow.
Oh, I have a baby and my wife's not here. Like I had to leave the baby with the family next door. I'm like, I have this opportunity. I gotta go. And so I went and met with him and he's like, yeah, like if you have any, how do you phrase it? If you have any, basically, if you don't like, if you get your feelings hurt easily, you aren't going to want to do this because you're going to hear no way more than you hear yes. And
it's almost like a Lorne Michaels Saturday Night Live thing.
Yeah. And most people think they can handle it and most people can't.
Right.
Most people have way too much pride or just aren't going to hear no. And I'm like, oh, I've heard no my whole goddamn life. I'm fine. So he goes, yeah, start sending me jokes. And I was like, cool. How, for what? How? Like, what do you want me to like just write you random joke? Like, yeah, whatever. Just send them. I'm just like, oh, I don't get it. So I just started finding like news stories in the news and I would like send him the news story with like 3 or 4 jokes to go with it. And I was reading back on some. Oh my god! I don't know why he kept me on. Oh, they were horrible. Like they weren't jokes. They weren't even jokes. They were just like, well, that seems like a bunch of bull crap. Like it was like it was my opinion on the news story. Like it wasn't even a punchline. It was just like there was no puns. Like that's the thing. Like it wasn't like, a cow got killed. Oh, well, that's a bunch of bull crap. It was just like, oh, a semi turns over and, kills 3 kids. I'm like, well, that's a bunch of bull crap. Like, I don't know. Like, they weren't even fucking jokes. Oh, sorry that I cursed. I should have asked first.
No, it's fine. Swearing is encouraged on this. I've kind of, after hearing Tom for so many years, even though I took a hiatus for like, I don't know, 25 years or so, he really likes obscure news stories and he likes medical stuff. Anything medical. If somebody's dying of something unusual, that seems to be something that he'd definitely bite on.
Yeah. Well, and through the years, luckily, like now I just get sent all the news stories and I just have to write jokes like I don't have to do any curating of my own. But back then I would have to find my own news stories. And But now Sam and his son Sam and Pauline Schifla, they do all the news curation and then send all the writers the stories. So we just have to write the jokes. We don't have to like spend. I mean, there were some nights, especially like Thursday nights, really sucked to find news for Friday morning. Sunday night was always packed because a bunch of shit happened over the weekend.
Yeah.
But by Thursday, like finding 5 news stories to write 4 or 5 jokes for would make like that weren't. That's the problem. Like already funny news stories aren't good to write jokes for. Like it's almost like I don't know. It's like, well, the funny is already in the news story.
How do you shift? Well, let's back up. I've got some ideas as to how you write, and I want to confirm them. How do you write your personal material?
Like the actual like writing of it?
Do you have like a process, or how do you do it?
I pretty much get out a big 500 sheets of plain white paper and my favorite pens and sit down and just write. I mean, and then try to whittle it down. Like I free write it first and then I whittle it down after.
Okay.
And then for like when I write for like my calling characters that I write for, that's all done like just scouring the internet and then writing on a computer, which is I find harder to write jokes typing them on a computer than I do handwriting them all, but it gets really time consuming to handwrite. Especially like there's a couple characters who I have to write a script a day for, and so to handwrite it and then to go back and type it is like an hour and a half, whereas if I just type it straight in then edit on screen, then it's like an hour. But that's if it was up to me and I had plenty of time to do shit, I would handwrite everything and then type it out and edit while I type But as far as my jokes, I don't know. I feel like something has to hit me. Like I used to force write when I was early on, but now I write at least 2 jokes for 20 news stories every morning and then write a script or 2. I write my failed to mention and then I write for like Larry King or like a Dick Hitswater or maybe one of the other calling characters every week. And so my personal stand-up writing's very like way low compared to what it used to be.
It's funny.
It shows, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you gotta make tough decisions and do what actually pays the bills. And I'm kind of doing that now because the podcast pays a lot more bills than comedy does for me. So I'm putting a lot more effort into it.
Focus on what brings in the money.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I was up in South Bend, my joke writing was very much, if I didn't have a complete joke written out exactly the way I wanted to do it, I would never do the joke.
Right.
And so I've changed when we moved down here. I mean, everything in my life was just fucked up. We couldn't find a house. I was
following it on your Facebook.
I mean, everything was just nothing went right. And I was in a new comedy scene, so I said, I have to switch things up, and I would just write premises down, and I'd go on stage and work off the premise. I didn't write anything out. And the funny thing is I think I came up with better stuff that way because it was more natural.
I can see that.
Yeah. So that's what I do now. I have my phone out. I get a premise, I put it in the same note, and I look at it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to work off of that one. And I feel pretty good about doing it that way now.
I hadn't done a show in, I don't know, 15 months or whatever. And then I went to do an outdoor show, and I had in my head that, like, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about these 3 or 4 things. And dude, I ate such a dick. And then closed on 2 old jokes of mine. Like, because I didn't want them to think I totally sucked.
Yeah.
But
well, I do the same.
That's the other weird thing is, I don't know, I think when you play your own town too much, like you're like, oh, I'm not creating enough or whatever. But then it's like, I don't know, no one knows who the fuck I am. Like, I go to a different town, like they don't give a shit if the joke I'm telling them is 15 years old or 15 minutes old. All they give a shit about is if it's funny, and they haven't heard it before. Which most people haven't heard any of my jokes before because nobody knows who, you know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of comics put a bunch of pressure on themselves to like, oh, I got to keep on writing new shit. And it's like, no, you could also work on perfecting the shit you already have. And taking out unnecessary. And you want it when you go to the open mic every week, you want the local people to think like, oh, he's trying new shit. You know, he's not the same, which I get that. But for the most part, I don't know. If I'm trying a new joke, I try it in the middle of a 45-minute set. I'm not going to go and try it. I'm not going to go to, I don't know. I've been doing it 18 years. I don't want to go sit at a coffee shop for 3 hours to get 3 minutes on a Tuesday night. I want to be at home with my family. And I have to be up at 4 a.m. to go do a job in comedy. So sometimes I get down on my, like, I don't go out as much and work the material as much as I need to. But then at some point you're like, wait, I put 12 years of doing it every night. And like now I need, I also want to have a healthy family life now. Not just,
and you're doing what you originally set out to do. So
exactly,
your means to an end actually happened the way you wanted it to. So and
now I'll probably be back to landscaping again in 5 years, but for now I'm living the dream, baby.
So many people I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of the old dogs that were originals at the Comedy Store, and they did their gig of comedy for a few years, and then they ended up writing for like TV and movies and stuff like that, and they never looked back because it paid the bills and it made them happy. And
like I said, you don't have to go out until 3 o'clock in the morning every night and perform for 9 drunk people who don't give a shit that you're there. Like, it's like, I'd rather just go do paid gigs and go play some casinos. Or, I honestly, I don't actively very much look for work. I just, luckily people would be like, oh, hey, we'd love to. Okay, cool. I'd love to come and do it. But I don't want that pressure. Like, I don't want to be the headliner and then like 12 people show up and and I know the club just lost. And all those waitresses and waiters, they all just didn't make shit tonight, and it's my fault. Like, I don't want that pressure. You know what I mean? Like, I like being a feature act and doing my 30 minutes and no one remembering my name after the show. And just being like, oh, I thought you were funnier. What's my name? I don't know. Cool. Have a good one, man. Like, it doesn't. I'm going to go get my picture taken with the famous guy now. I get it. Have a good time.
Thank you. One last question I like to ask everybody. What's the best and worst comedy advice that you got when you were coming up?
Ooh, I wish I would have had time. Now whatever I say, I'm gonna, like, as soon as we get off, I'm gonna be like, oh, I have a better one.
I need to tell everybody I asked this question. That's what I should do. So
okay, so one of the reasons this is so long, but I'm gonna try to shorten it. I know you only have so much time.
Oh, I've got time. I've got another interview, but it's an hour from now.
So I went to this club called One Liners in Indianapolis, who was owned by Dave Wilson, with Chick and Patty Perrin, the people who got me into stand up.
Mhm.
Or actually, you know what? Before I got in stand up, they go, "Hey, you got to see this comedian. His name's Jimmy Pardo." And I was like, "All right, cool." I had never been to a stand up show live before. I watched it on TV all the time, but I'd never gone to a comedy club before. That was the first time I ever walked in a comedy club. And before the show, we go back, they meet Jimmy, they introduce him to me, and I have no idea who he is, what to expect. And so he gets up there and oh my gosh, I mean, I'm in tears. And he can see me from the stage, and he's like, "What do you do at the Old Point Tavern over there?" And like starts talking to me from stage, and like it's being super funny, and I'm crying laughing. And hey, what do you got in that thing? Chicken? You probably got the chicken in there, right? What? And then some sort of salad dressing, maybe a mayonnaise based product. And I'm just in tears, like, oh my god, the comedian's talking to me, and so then afterwards, I go up, I'm like, oh, you were great. And so Chick and Patty are like, all right, well, we're taking off. And I try to like joke with him, and he goes, yeah, we aren't gonna do that. And it was nice meeting you. And he like turned around and walked away. And because I was like, what about that Chick parent? He's a real fucking dickhead, right? And he goes, no, he's a great guy. And I go, he's kind of a dick, right? And he goes, no, he's a great guy. He goes, yeah, we aren't going to do this right now. It was nice meeting you. And so then I decide, okay, I'm doing stand-up comedy. I'm going to try this. Like, this is awesome. I've always wanted to try it. You're 30 years old. Quit giving a shit what people think about you. Like, just go. And so I wrote, like, that's when I went down. I told Chick I was going to do it, and he's like, "You're going to suck. You got to write your own shit." I'm like, "Okay." So what I didn't tell him was I had also emailed Jimmy Pardo. Like, I went to Jimmy Pardo's website and I emailed him. I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about having no idea that like comics get this shit all the time. Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing stand-up comedy. What should I do or not?" And so I write him, I go, "Hey, I met you through Chick Parent." I'm like, "Oh, this is my end."
Yeah.
Like, he's going to feel like he has to. So I'm like, "Hey, I met you through Chick Parent." And I want to do stand-up comedy. What, do you have any pointers? What should I do? And I didn't hear back. I didn't hear back for like, and in the meantime, I'd started doing stand-up comedy. Like I had started going to open mics and just sucking and sucking and sucking and sucking. And but sucking so bad that I was like, no, I'm gonna do this till I don't suck. Like this is I have to save some fucking face here. I have to learn this. Like I can't be this bad. So then like maybe 4 months later, out of nowhere, I get an email back from him, and it's like 2 pages long. And it's
Wow.
"Hey, yeah, I remember you, blah, blah, blah. First of all, it's all about getting on stage. You need to get on stage as many times as possible. You're going to have to go on stage 1,000 times, and you're going to suck, and it's okay to suck. And there's going to be cliques where you go, and you aren't going to be the cool one, and you're going to fuck those guys. Like you just focus on your shit. Don't get involved in the local scene politics. Don't get just work on being funny. Anytime you're thinking about, well, this guy's doing that, you should be writing a joke. You should be don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Anytime you start thinking about another comic, start thinking about your act and do your work on what you need to work on. Don't worry about anyone else, and just get on stage every chance you can get."
Yeah.
And some other shit. But that was the best advice, was that, hey, you are going to suck. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I feel better about sucking. You won't always suck if you continue to get on stage. And it was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep on doing this until I finally figure out how to not suck.
Yeah.
And then, a few years later, I got to MC for him, and I came before the show. I go in, I was like, "Hey, I'm Jeff Oskay. I don't know if you remember me. I wrote you a letter." And he goes, "Yeah, don't ever fucking do that to a comic. Like that's don't ever do that again." And I go, "I won't." And then so I go out and I do my little act or whatever, and he's sitting over on the side, like on this upper level in the back of Crackers, and I come off stage. I'd had what I thought was the best set I'd ever had, and I was like, "Oh, Jimmy Pardo just saw me have the best set I fucking ever." And so I walk. He's got his arms folded, and he's got his legs crossed, and he's not looking at me. He's like looking at the stage, and the feature acts up, and I'm walking, and he's not looking at me. And then all of a sudden, like I get by him, and he does one of like the finger, like step over here, and so I lean down, and he leans in, and he just goes, "Not my cup of tea," and just leans back, and I had the smile of a lifetime, and I was like, "I made it, baby! I made it. Life is good."
Oh, that's great. So do you have a worst? Did somebody give you some really bad advice that you took?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't feel like anyone gave me people tried to give me advice, like how to MC better and shit, which I didn't take, and I suck at MCing. But I don't know. No one, I mean, I made a bunch of mistakes, you know what I mean? But those were all on my own. Like no one, those were all my own great ideas to, cuss out club owners or, fucking sell jokes to douchebags and whatever. I mean, those are my own faults. I live with them. No one gave me any bad. I mean, there were so many great people. I mean, I've gotten to work with so many. I've gotten so lucky to work with like so many awesome, like big names and like Carlos Alzaraki. Like I came off stage and he would like keep track of all your jokes and tell you how to make them better. Like he'd be like, "Oh, you should take this. You should rephrase this sentence this way." And then like you would try it the next set, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, now try this." And you'd try it the next set. Like, what headliner does that for like an MC? You know what I mean? To like help you get better. And so many comics have just been, very like, "Hey, that one joke you have, if you tagged it with that, or I would leave this out because that's not believable. But if you changed it to this way, so it's like you're thinking about it and you didn't actually do it," and just little kind of tweaks that really helped a joke or helped me figure it out. I've gotten super lucky to have people just give me little things like that.
Yeah. I love tags. If somebody gives me a tag, and I've got a couple that I've used, and it made the joke, 100% better just because of one little tag.
Oh, especially if it's somebody who you like totally respect, and you're like, "Oh my god, they care enough to like help me out on my shit. Of course, I'm gonna try that shit."
Yeah.
Man, you always have like the old heads who come up and go, "I got the perfect tag for you." You should be like, "Yeah, my balls." And you're like, "Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna use that. But thanks for. Now I see why you've never MC'd and you've been doing comedy 25 years. I'm not gonna take advice from you." But I would say that's the bad advice I get is like from older comics who you have like way exceeded where they ever got, and yet they still like see what you're doing wrong. And it's like, I got that. Like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay for now.
You're not talking about blowjobs enough. Come on, you got to put that in everywhere.
Yeah. See, you should do like a sucking motion when you're talking about her blowing you in the back of the Chevy. That way they can see it in the back of the room. You want to make big
Yeah.
motions. You're up on stage. They want to be able to see you from all points.
Talk about how stupid kids are today when your audience is all 22-year-olds.
Well, that's where I'm at now, is now that I'm old and I talk about my kids, and I do like a younger crowd, and they're like, don't give a shit about your kids. Don't have them, don't want them, not having them anytime soon. And I'm just like, oh, I better talk about something else. They are not giving a shit about my kids.
Yeah.
It's like, and I get it. Like, I wouldn't either at their age.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've actually I learned early on that I sprinkle young language into my act a lot, and like I refer to my wife in the same set as my bae, my boo, and my shorty, and the whole way. And I do it totally deadpan and like it's totally unironic and stuff like that. And that pulls the young people in, and they're okay with the fact that I like to watch Project Runway with her. So, you know, it leans them in. And then the people my age are like, that takes them out a little bit because they don't know what any of it means, but the rest of the meat of the joke they get. So I've been experimenting with that, and it works all right.
Oh, well, that was speaking of the young kids. So at that show I told you about with Terhune, there were kids like 4 and up.
Yeah.
And I was bombing so bad by the end, I kind of turned into Harlan Williams. And I was like, what about you, little buddy? You play the Minecraft? Over there doing the Roblox? What do you like to do there, friend? Hey there, kid. What do you paint with your fingers? What do you like, the chicken nuggets? What do you do over there, fella? And I'm like, what? And in my head, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
You're crowd working toddlers.
I was bombing so bad that I just didn't know what to do. And I just, look at this guy, this little munchkin. He doesn't want me talking to him, do you, little fella? He just wants to go home. Just watch some Power Rangers. Is that even a thing anymore? Do you guys know the Power Rangers? It was horrible. It was horrible. Like, my girlfriend afterwards was like, had I not seen you do other shows first, like I would have left. And like it's painful for her to watch when that shit happens.
Yeah.
So she's like, she goes, it hurt. Like, I'm watching you, and as bad as it hurts you, it hurts me worse to know that I have my boyfriend's going through that.
That's great. So where can people find you on the interwebs, Jeff?
At Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Jeff Oskay, Oskay. And that's where I'm at. And every Friday on the Bob and Tom Show doing Failed to Mention. And I usually post those on my YouTube channel under the same name, and on Facebook every Friday night for those who want to watch.
Yeah, it's must-see TV for me, even though it's only 5 or 6 minutes long. I'm not kidding when I say I absolutely love it. And,
well, thanks, man.
And I'm always
someone appreciates the subtleness of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm always looking for. I'm always looking for the way the eyes look, the cold dead eyes at the beginning, and the way you physically go over and push the button. I love it. It's all great.
You're far too kind.
Nope, you deserve it. Well, thanks for being on the show, and I wish you the best because you make me laugh, and I like that.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate you having me on. I know you've had names far larger than me, so I feel like I'm in very good company. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, I working comedians. Anybody that has made a living off of comedy is welcome on my show. So that's because a lot of you guys are funnier than some of them that have the Netflix specials, and I know that.
That's what I'm holding out for, baby.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you. Have a great night.